Today, the production and distribution of electricity causes a lot of environmental damage, so it makes sense that conserving electricity is a centerpiece of the Eco-Olympics. And it is a great centerpiece because electricity conservation can be measured precisely, in theory. Unfortunately, measuring energy conservation in reality is quite complicated. Here we'll present a few of the challenges you might face and solutions that Environmental Alliance and other schools have used. In the end, we hope you'll be able to work out a methodology for your campus that correctly rewards those who conserve the most electricity. On many campuses with older infrastructure, it can be difficult, if not impossible, to separate out one dormitory's energy use from the next. For example, one of the reasons the Eco-Olympics has not been run on Duke's West campus is that the quadrangles are all on 1 meter, making it impossible to know how much the electricity usage went down in individual dorms. Even on East campus, 2 newer dorms, Randolph and Blackwell, are on 1 meter, meaning they get the same score in the energy portion of the Eco-Olympics each year. Another problem can be meters that are faulty. Running the Eco-Olympics has turned up more than one faulty or miscalibrated meter over the years. Fortunately, they have always been corrected quickly and not had much impact on the competition. You can lower the chances of a faulty meter being discovered during the competition by giving the Facilities Management Department several weeks advance notice so they have time to run tests on the meters. Some dorms have non-residential functions in the same building. For example, Brown Dormitory has a large computer lab on the ground floor. Southgate has a gym attached to it, GA has the down under, and the first floor of Bell Tower is offices. So how do you separate out the energy uses so that Brown, Southgate, GA, and Bell Tower are not at a huge disadvantage? The answer oftentimes is that you can't. Some schools have handled this problem by asking the residents of dorms to take on the challenge of reducing energy use in the non-residential spaces as well. So this can mean involving the office workers in the offices, making sure the gym lights are off when it's not in use, and working with the IT department to make sure computer lab computers and printers are powered down when not in use. Other schools try to factor out the non-residential uses by measuring energy reduction in absolute terms. A dorm with a gym might reduce residential energy use by 50%, but it will look like only a 25% reduction at the meter. Another dorm without a gym could reduce their energy use 30% and look like they did better than the dorm with the gym. If you look at it as total kilowatt hours reduced per person, it's clear that the dorm with the gym reduced their energy the most. There is one big assumption in this method, that the energy use in the non-residential sections of the building do not change because of the competition. This assumption could be a good or bad one depending on a number of factors. One of the benefits of the green building movement is that sustainable building guidelines like LEED require many meters be installed inside each building. This is called submetering. Submetering allows building operators to separate out different energy uses within a building so that energy inefficiencies can be quickly identified and fixed. As more dorms are renovated to the LEED standard, it should become easier to separate out multiple uses. This is the easiest challenge to address. Simply divide the energy reductions by the number of residents in each dorm to get a reduction per person. The population in each dorm changes every year, so make sure you ask Student Affairs for an updated tally. On East Campus, newer dorms have central air conditioning while older dorms don't. The chillers used for air conditioning consume a lot of electricity. This does not penalize all the air-conditioned dorms equally, it just penalizes the dorms that house the chillers. On East Campus, Randolph and Blackwell house the chillers that provide air conditioning to Brody Gym, Randolph, Blackwell, and Bell Tower. So if you schedule the Eco-Olympics during the air conditioning season, you will need to work with facilities management to subtract out the energy used by the chillers in Randolph and Blackwell. It can be done, but requires the involvement of the chilled water engineers. The easiest way to remove the influence of air conditioning is to schedule the Eco-Olympics during the heating season when the AC is turned off. That's why the Eco-Olympics has traditionally taken place in November. The only challenge with this solution is that the cold weather has been coming unseasonably late in recent years. You might be wondering why heating doesn't affect electricity usage. It's a good question. At Duke, heat is provided by pipes that distribute steam from the central steam plant on West Campus. The steam is created by burning coal and is pushed through the pipes by its own pressure, so there's no electricity involved. It would be great to measure reductions in steam usage during the competition, but unfortunately there are even fewer steam meters than there are electricity meters. To To determine how much energy dorms conserve during the competition, you have to have some way of predicting how much energy they would have used if the competition had not inspired them to conserve. This predicted scenario is called a reference case. There are several ways to construct a reference case, each with advantages and disadvantages. Here are a few methods that Environmental Alliance has used in the past. When the Eco Olympics began, the reference case was created using average energy use numbers from the same month each of the 3 prior years. That worked well at first, but after several years, new dorms were built or old dorms were renovated, and the energy use numbers from the previous years were influenced by the Eco Olympics itself. Some schools don't see this as a problem. Harvard uses the prior year's method, believing that each year the dorms should be striving to do even better than it did in last year's competition. That is a good way to make the competition harder and harder each year, especially for the dorms that do well several years in a row. The only drawback is that your reduction numbers will be more impressive if they are compared to a reference case that is based on students' behavior without any kind of competition. Another way to build the reference case is to look at each dorm's energy usage in the months just prior to the competition. So if the competition begins in November, the reference case predicts that the average energy use for November will be in line with the average energy use during the months of September and October. The problem with this is that it gives an advantage to dorms that were particularly wasteful in September and October, and penalizes those that were already being frugal. It also will be skewed by the fact that there are fewer hours of daylight in different months. In months with shorter days, students will spend more time indoors and need to use lights longer. And if you use the prior month's method to build your reference case, you must work with facilities management to compensate for air conditioning used in those warmer months. Otherwise, Randolph and Blackwell will get credit for a 30% energy reduction simply because the weather got cold. Letting students know how they are doing during the competition is key to inspiring them to do even more. As of 2006, the dorms on East still must be hand-read, which means that at best, Environmental Alliance can report to students on their progress once a week during the competition. There are plans to install digital meters in the future, which will allow for instant feedback through the internet. Alright, so those are some of the challenges you might encounter and a menu of options for addressing them. Whatever method you choose, don't turn off your common sense. If one dorm is at the lead in every Eco Olympics event but is dead last in the energy reduction event, take a second look. There's probably a mistake in your math or a faulty meter to blame. It's worth noting that the difficulties we've described here come from assigning energy savings to specific dorms. It is much easier to determine how much energy the competition conserved as a whole. So, no matter how fuzzy the math gets when breaking the energy out by dorm, you should still be able to measure your competition's impact. It is great to say that your event reduced dormitory energy usage by 86 megawatt hours and saved the university $4,300 on its electricity bill.